called Contours of the Kuyperian Tradition by Craig Bartholomew. I recommend people read it. And Craig says that Kuyper is partially responsible for apartheid. Kuyper himself never says, please build a system over 20 years after I'm dead where you turn races into what he called spheres of society. The spheres were state, church, family, business, right? These social realities that have a kind of integrity to each one of them and a sovereignty within the sphere, he says. And so apartheid makes racist spheres. Colors, blacks, and whites are not supposed to be together. He does, in some places, approvingly, say things about the Boers and about the Boers forbidding intermarriage.
Mhm.
And certainly, I mean, he says things. He says things that suggest, well, over time, even they will catch up to people. He might say, but he clearly bought into the ways that some people talked about, race, or the races. I mean, one human race, but the different ways that Black African people, European people, Asian people, the differences between them, and he was among those who, at least at times, had talked about an interpretation of history unfolding according to the sons of Noah. I'm sorry, which means he obviously does not read Genesis very closely because Canaan's the one that's cursed, not Ham. So that that way of talking about the unfolding of history, all that's true. He does all that. Particularly to South Africa, he does basically say, I think they're doing the right things, kind of keeping people separate. Nowhere does he say, one, that types of people are spheres to be kept separate. And nowhere does he say that I think you should build a system where you keep people separate like that. So certainly his idea about sphere sovereignty gets used. But the idea, if you're just reading the idea itself does not lead you to making groups of people into spheres that where the boundaries are not to be, crossed. So that's why I think I'm happy to say partially responsible. I'm happy to say he was a racist. I've said it many times. He's great and greatly flawed. But the things the things that have been very helpful to me out of his greatness have given me here's a metaphor I used in the book called Calvinism for a Secular Age, that is essays where we're reflecting on Kuyper's 1998 Stone lectures that he gave at Princeton. Did I say 1998? Yeah, 1998 was the 100-year anniversary of that. But there was there were like 3 conferences that year. But in 1898, right, he gave these 6 Stone lectures at Princeton, and that volume is probably what most people who've read Kuyper are going to be most familiar with in terms of reading him. Now Lexham Press has all these volumes of untranslated stuff that's available, so I recommend people check it out. But I think the opportunity with someone like Kuyper for me was reading him talk about common grace. And it was like driving in the car with the radio on, and a new song comes on that you've never heard, and it is your song. That's what it was like. That's why I say in my the revision of my dissertation that became my first book, I mean, it was a theological oxygen mask. That's what it was. There's no question about it. I was gasping, with this intuition about cultural engagement, and there it was. And there it was. The problem is like if you go buy the album that a person, who's the artist? Man, I'm buying that album. You listen to the album and you like a lot of the songs. And then there's only 2 songs left. They're about to bring it home. And the next to the last song, you're thinking, what is this song doing on this album? I hate that song. Are you kidding? No, please tell me that somebody played a joke and put that song on the album. who's the practical joker in the record, that put this on there? No, well, his name was Kuyper. Is the practical joker. It's just part of his failings. And the thing is, sometimes people go, I don't see how you could do this. Like, look, why teach political theology? I'm still assigning John Howard Yoder.
Hmm.
Okay, and I don't know how much you've talked about Yoder on Apollo's Water, but for
We've
those,
never mentioned it before, but I mean, I know who he is. Of
John
course,
Howard Yoder,
anybody that's been in it.
John Howard, very important for this book on the politics of Jesus. Very important for you know there being a neo-Anabaptist thing. Some people might say, no, Stanley Hauerwas is like instrumental to that. Well, you're not going to get Stanley without John Howard Yoder, because Yoder's very influential for him. Stanley doesn't
Mhm.
grow up as an Anabaptist. Stanley's a Methodist, right? So, or he grew up Methodist. I mean, so Yoder's influence, I think, is very important for him being this person that helps people to think about, oh, this kind of being an alternative witness approach to things. So you have to assign Yoder. Here's the thing: Yoder had inappropriate encounters with over 100 women. Now, and I mean, and some of them were, holding on to someone, laying his head on someone's lap. I mean, some of them apparently did involve disrobing us. Or I don't know how many were actually like intercourse or whatever. But the point is that that's a lot. And a great irony when part of your whole thing is also like nonviolent resistance. But you don't see in anything that Yoda writes that's giving you that would ever be excuse making for his behavior. Now, apparently, he had some idea. Stanley Hauerwas says, he goes, John, brilliant man that he was, had a very stupid idea. That basically, Jesus says, none are given in marriage in the eschaton. And that if we're in a way kind of inhabiting the eschaton now, that we can relate to each other that way. I mean, that's kind of
That's
that
jacked
was
up.
sort of the idea. Um, and so, um, that's crazy. But reading Yoder will not turn you into a sexual predator. So that's
It
some other
doesn't.
problem.
But that's kind of the whole point of the scriptures, where we see these people that are deeply flawed. I mean, Solomon, for crying out loud, the wisest man to ever
Oh,
live, and have
oh,
all the wives and
oh.
concubines, and even funding projects for alternative
Right.
religions.
Yeah. Right.
If you
Right.
think about it, I mean, David
Yeah.
is an
Well. Yeah.
adulterer
You know,
with all these guys.
got to create the spaces for the foreign wives to worship.
Oh my
So,
gosh. That's what this is where I think that people that are more from the fundamentalist bent, they want to see it in black and white. And God always operates right on the edge. He takes you up to I mean, even with Mary being a teenage girl, that betrothed, right in that part where it
yeah.
makes people
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
it doesn't fit the categories. He takes it
Yeah.
right up to that edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what you're bringing out, even with Kuyper, is we're talking about these issues, especially in the political issues. There's not always a black and white. This is
Uh,
how we have to understand
well,
this.
and even the ones you think are black and white, it's like you think the public policy that would ever make it out is going to be like that. A,
Exactly.
a pristine public policy that somehow drops straight from the mouth of God. Good luck when you got to work with other human beings. Even just
Yeah.
working with other Christians is not going to turn out that way. So, one of the things I think about in terms of the political piece, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about this later, but when we think about politics, politics is a very experimental activity.
What do you mean by that?
In other words, you're throwing things at a wall and seeing if it sticks.
I'm laughing because I think most people would be like, seriously? Yeah, most politics, that's what it is. They're just seeing
Exactly
what
what
works
it
and what
is.
doesn't work.
We call it the American experiment that we're in the first, as it
Yeah,
is. So,
it is an experiment. Yeah.
and the reason I've taken to using the experimental language in the last couple of years is, if you think of it in terms of an experiment, it takes the pressure off to somehow I have to come up with this perfect Christian public policy.